Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Dial It Up, and today we are going over the standard attack power energy explosion. So energy explosion, as I mentioned, is a standard power that you can find in the PAC, the powers and abilities card. It is an attack power and reads as such. When this character is given a ranged combat action and deals damage, an area of effect may include all untargeted characters that are adjacent to one or more hit characters assigned at least 1 damage. Hit targets are dealt damage normally. Other hit targets are dealt 1 damage for each lightning bolt printed on this character's base. So to start off with energy explosion, it is a ranged combat action, and it is a when you make a ranged combat action. So it actually can be combined with any other ranged combat actions that a character could make, such as penetrating psychic blast, pulse wave, such like that. So you're going to give your character, now we have Gambit here, who is well known for his energy explosion, going to be making a ranged combat attack, and first we're just going to target Quicksilver. So, like you would set up any other ranged combat attack, you make your target, calculate your combat values, do your attack roll, and then you do your energy explosion. AoE, area of effect. Area of effect is now something that came out with 2013 rules and is now specified in the rulebook as an attack that can target multiple characters based on what that power or ability does. So when you are attacking with energy explosion, you actually have to specify before the attack roll is made that you will be using energy explosion, even if you're just doing a standard attack or a psychic blast. You have to specify whether or not you're going to be using energy explosion before you even make that attack roll. Now, why you do that is because when you are attacking with energy explosion, you're actually going to compare your attack value and the dice roll versus everyone's defense values. So instead of making an attack roll for every character, you're going to make one attack roll and you're going to apply it to everyone. So once, in this case, both Quicksilver and Mystique have a 17 defense, so it won't make too much of a difference. But if Stonewall was here, then I'd have to be able to hit an 18 to affect all of them. Now, Quicksilver himself has super senses. That is an ability that will be able to go off. And most defense abilities actually will go off with energy explosion unless you're using a special energy explosion like Gambit's, who combines it with his penetrating psychic blast. But in this case, we still get the super senses. Now against super senses, if super senses succeeds, it's considered a miss. So your energy explosion, even if you hit high enough to hit the adjacent characters, if the initial target rolls super senses, it's a miss, nothing else happens. If you do happen to hit, and you roll high enough to splash onto adjacent characters, you deal your regular damage to the target, and then you're going to deal damage equal to the actual printed lightning bolts to each adjacent character. Now, they do specify printed. There are effects in the game that allow you to gain more lightning bolts, more targets, but those don't count. It actually has to be physically printed on the character's dial in order to determine how much damage you're dealing. Gambit himself is particularly nasty because he has 3 lightning bolts, so he's going to be dealing 3 damage. Now, I set this up particularly because this Mystique, not only does she have shape change, she's a special Mystique that can't be targeted. However, the area of effect on energy explosion doesn't target adjacent characters. You only ever target the initial character and then deal damage to everybody else without targeting them. So not only would she be able to not roll her shape change, it will get around her special ability that says she can't be targeted. Now, the other thing to note with targeting characters is that you can target in pods. So we've got these characters here, we've got these characters over here. We target Quicksilver to splash to Stonewall and Mystique. We target Nightcrawler to splash to Magneto. Over here with Nightcrawler and Magneto, Nightcrawler also has super senses. However, Magneto has energy shield deflection. That is something that is calculated every time that his defense power is being calculated against a ranged attack. So even though he is not actually the target, that is still a power that needs to get calculated because it's a ranged attack. So to hit Nightcrawler on an 18, to hit Magneto, we need a 19 because that energy shield deflection is going to activate. However, Magneto is sitting in hindering terrain. Normally a ranged combat attack while drawing lines of fire through hindering terrain would give them an extra +1. But because he isn't being targeted, lines of fire isn't drawn to Magneto, even though he's in the hindering, he's not going to get that bonus. Alright, so now I want to focus back on this pod, just because of the way that it's placed, is that when you're doing multiple targets in an energy explosion, you want to make sure you're careful about who you're targeting. In a certain case, ignoring Mystique's shape change and untargetable ability, if we target both Stonewall and Mystique, then the splash will only ever happen once. So we wouldn't be able to splash onto Quicksilver twice. Also, if you just had them all adjacent to each other and you target all three of them, there's no splash because the splash only goes on to targets that were untargeted. So you pick your target, then you splash, making sure that you're careful as to who you're going to splash onto, because if you target too many characters, you're not going to activate the splash. Also, when you're targeting multiple characters, now this is just when you're making a regular range attack, you have to divide up your damage. With energy explosion, you have to have assigned at least 1 damage in order to activate the splash. So throwing most of it into Quicksilver, but only 1 into Nightcrawler, will be able to splash both pods. The other quick wording on that is that it's only looking for damage assigned, not damage taken or even damage dealt. So if you have a character who is impervious, but somebody behind them isn't, you can deal them at least 1 damage, even though that impervious character, invulnerable character, invincible character, even toughness character isn't taking that 1 damage. The person behind them will still get splashed because you assigned damage to that character in order to activate the AoE for the energy explosion. Now, all properties or attributes, whatever you want to call it, of the actual attack will follow through onto the splash damage. So with Gambit here having penetrating psychic blast, his initial damage will be penetrating, but then also his splash damage will be penetrating. That also works with characters with precision strike, where it's a good way to get around super sense characters where precision strike will get through super senses, but not only on the original target, but also on anybody that splashes onto. And then one last thing with adding damage to the splash is if you hit a critical hit, it adds +1 damage to the damage dealt to all characters. So on a critical hit, not only will you be increasing the damage dealt to the initial targets, but also the targets that they were splashed onto. So in a particular case like this, where you're dealing 3 damage on a splash, a critical hit can do a lot of damage with energy explosion. Alright, so that was energy explosion, which is actually one of my favorite powers to play around with because there's a lot of things that you can do it with it and a lot of things that people don't necessarily think about most of the time when you are playing around with it. But if you do have any comments, questions, or concerns, just let me know down below, and we'll see you guys next time for another episode of Dial It Up.
Married with Clix is brought to you in part by MajesticCCG.com. Check out the new premium site with MajesticCCG.com/Apex-Insiders. Check the link below, trust me. Trying to remember that from me talking? Not gonna help. You'll get awesome articles at $3 a month, with the first month being free, from amazing writers such as Paris Gordon, Easton Brock, Aaron Cantu. I'm even going to be contributing occasionally, and if you're familiar with the Metal Lab, check out some of Mike Payne's articles. So, check it out again, MajesticCCG.com/Apex-Insiders for your look into the minds of some of the greats.